Just
yeah,
like,
no, it's too late, man. We're live.
go!
Throw the splash screen up. Oh, splash. There we go. Remove the holding screen.
Where are we streaming to right now?
And so we're streaming to all of the platforms.
All of them.
So hey, everybody, we are live. Today, I'm your Emoto because Emoto was deluged by Hurricane Sally, and she has no power. So be sure to send positive vibes her way and hope for the best.
Lots of water.
Can everybody hear us? How's our levels?
Is anyone here?
No, I don't think anybody's here yet.
All right. Well, that was a great intro. Let's do it once we have an audience.
Cool.
So back to Rick Steves. Man, that guy's a great
I do love me some Rick Steves, man. That guy's pretty ace.
He's been doing it since like the 90s.
Oh no, it says we got some watchers now.
Is anyone watching us? Does anyone know anything about Rick Steves? He's hilarious.
Nice.
He's great.
Thanks, PinDaddy41. He says we sound good so far.
Okay, that's good.
So cool. So I wanted to give a personal thank you to everyone that gave us 5 stars on the This Week in Pinball podcast website.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Hey, what's up, Daniel? Hope you're doing good.
We went from being a backwoods pinball promoter to front page like overnight. You guys are amazing.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. Really, really appreciate it. So what are we doing today, Kyle?
We're going to be working on some Molex connectors. It'll be pretty fun. I've got like an assortment of stuff here that we will be getting into.
Whoa, Jessica. Hey, what's up?
Everyone's joining.
Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you, buddy.
No, it's cool. I felt like I had one more thing we wanted to say before we joined in. We talked about Emoto unfortunately being without power because of a massive hurricane that really wanted to live over her house. We talked about everyone being awesome. Oh, if anyone here, let's talk about the IPDB stuff. I kind of need a fire under my butt to start taking pictures of all my games so we can keep uploading them to IPDB. I got some photos of a game we have here called Planets, and I'm thinking about just going like left to right and just photographing every game. So if any of y'all have sent your photos to IPDB, let us know. I want to check them out. That's really cool, and I think they appreciate it. So yeah. Was there something else we wanted to talk about?
I mean, there seems like there was something. Yeah.
There's something I'm bad at this. Anyways, we're going to do Molex connectors today.
Moving on.
Moving on. And maybe it'll come back to me later. We've got a smorgasbord of parts and tools in front of us here. And this is like the most important thing you need to do, know how to do other than like lefty, loosey, righty, tighty. This is like a very, very common thing you will have to fix on pinball games. I wish I actually included a photo of an IDC connector. I don't have any, but IDC stands for Insulation Displacement Connector. Most pinball games use these sorts of connectors to attach a wire to a housing, which will then slip onto a header, right? This is what's called a header, right? I'll use the small camera. This guy is usually soldered to your circuit board, and these pins are all attached to some circuit on your pinball game. This connector here houses your wires and pins, and that's how they make a connection, right? So in manufacturing, it is a lot easier and cheaper for companies to use an insulation displacement connector, and that is what most pinball games use. And they suck. They suck. I mean, they might have been great when they were new and like they were in their, what's it called, like their intended service life or something like that. But 30 plus years on, they're just not ideal. You don't get a lot of contact between the actual wire and the pin. They just, you know, they're rated for the correct amperage, but they just haven't held up. Whenever I replace a connector, I always replace it with what is called a Molex crimp and stuff connector. It takes a little bit of specialized tooling, but not much. And there's a little bit of technique to it, but it's very easy to get. Reasons you'll need to do this, bad pins. The pins that actually hold the wire and touch up against the header pins as so. Again, when they're in the connector, these little bits right against here, and that's what makes your connection.
Can you tilt that a little bit when you're doing that?
Yeah.
Maybe give us a front view.
Oh, yeah. They sit into the housing like this, and again, the wide end of this pin sits against this flat end of the header here.
And raise it up a little bit. Your field's a little low. There you go. Beautiful.
Something like that. And these things do have like an insertion rating, right? There are scientists at Molex that put these things in connectors and measure putting these things on and off the connector so many times to give them a rating to say they are good for this many insertions. And I think, you know, the insertion number for these is like in the double digits, and we're talking like less than 50. In actual practice, is that true? No. But, you know, they do degrade in quality over time. So the reason you'd be doing this is if you had a bad or shoddy connection. It is very common, we've talked about it a lot, general illumination connectors on Williams games and older Bally games and stuff. They will burn up. These will become discolored or break or catch on fire, and then you're replacing everything. But being able to repair these things is really, really handy.
So real quick, Mitchell Reeder says he loves your shirt.
Hey, thanks.
So,
I think this is a rad shirt.
No, it is a rad shirt. Dirty Donnie, original for Marco Specialties.
One of my favorites.
And Pinball Nerds Podcast, hey, what's up?
Hey.
Says he is learning so much, or I am learning so much.
Awesome.
Not to assume that my fault.
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad I can teach somebody something. There's a reason I remembered all this stuff. Lost where I'm at, but well, let's get to it. It's pretty simple. There's a few things. There's ways to do it right and wrong. Even when you're doing it wrong, they still might be working right. But there are, again, there are people in lab coats that like come up with the correct ways to do this stuff, and we will try to go over some of that. What we're going to start with is the most common. We're going to start with a 0.156 connector. 0.156 refers to the spacing between pins. So it is 0.156 of an inch apart. Another size is the 0.100 connector, which is 0.100 inches apart, connector to, or pin to pin. Is this in the camera view? Am I holding it at the right?
Yep,
okay.
Looks good. Yeah.
And just for another view, let's grab the headers. And again, when we're talking about the header, we're talking about the pins that stick out of the circuit board. That's a 0.100, really small. The 0.156, they're a lot bigger. So even though they are only, you know, the actual numbers are very close, right? They're 0.05 inches difference. The actual size of these things it's pretty easy to spot once you know what it is. 0.100, 0.156. These are very small. These are large. Easy.
Hey, Roller Pinball, good to see you again. And hi, Rodrigo. Excellent to meet you. He says hello from Mexico.
Hola. How's it going? Thanks for joining. So I'm trying to figure out where we should start. I think we'll start with the 156 pins.
They're far more common. So
they're more common, they're bigger, and they're easier to do. You have two kinds of 0.156 pins, and I'm not going to jump in an argument hole. You have your standard 156 pin, which is a flat surface, and then you've got this one called a trifurcon pin. These ones have two 90-degree surfaces that come up and make extra contact with the header pin. You can ask 10 different people opinions, and you'll get a bazillion different answers. Personally, I don't use these very much. They cost more. They are harder to fit into housing sometimes, and I really don't think they have that much of a difference. Like, in theory, like absolutely, they make a difference. You've got a bigger contact surface, so you should, you know, you should be able to transfer more. But again, right, like things are working for so long with these things, they cost less, whatever. I'm just being cheap. They are kind of neat to look at though when they slip on. They do fit tighter. Can you see that? How it sort of, you've got those two prongs that come up and they grip around that pin to give you 3 points of contact, which I guess is where trifurcon comes from. Again, sometimes I'll use these for general illumination stuff to have that better current contact patch, but it's whatever I have in the bin.
APB says trifurcated or bust.
See, exactly. Some people like them, some people are indifferent.
Jessica says you really need to teach her something so that she can impress Marco.
Come over and play a pinball game that we have here before you guys get yours, and you'll get the high score real quick. And you'll impress him when he busts it out of the box, right?
Also, this is super interesting.
What, this?
No, Roller Pinball says
Okay.
that he didn't finish watching our Roller Games After Hours stream the other night.
Okay.
But in case we didn't figure it out, AD47 enables family mode so that it says jackpot instead of kick butt during multi-ball. You seemed kind of disappointed that it never said jackpot, and that's how you make it happen. So that's how you fix your disappointment, Kyle.
I think maybe there was a Roller Games I was playing at some point where it said jackpot, and when it says kick butt, it just sounds so similar. But you were right. You were absolutely right, Steve. It did say kick butt. That was fun. I really like Roller Games. I'm very continuously pleased how that thing came out.
Excellent game.
Thanks for watching. Let's talk about wire really quick, too, because this is kind of important. I've got an old Stern Sam, what is this, a shaker motor intercept wire thing. We used to get these with all the shaker motors, and most SAM games I was installing shaker motors into had them, so I used these to scavenge wire off of. In pinball, you have 2 gauges of wire. You have 2 gauges of wire you're working with 99% of the time. You've got 18 gauge wire. Generally, this wire is used to run solenoids and higher voltage current capacity things. And you've got 22 gauge wire, which is skinnier. These are usually for lights, switches, etc. For whatever reason, the bigger number means a smaller wire. So that's how you can kind of maybe trick your brain into remembering that. 22 gauge, 18 gauge. A lot of connectors are rated to fit only a certain range of wire, right? You can see this 0.100 pin, I hope. It's teensy weensy. This thing is totally rated to work with only these smaller gauge wires. Or I guess technically a higher gauge wire. But
higher gauge, but you can say smaller gauge.
Let's say this. We'll bring it down real easy. These things are rated to work with small wire. You could absolutely barely not really fit this 18 gauge wire into this connector. Some of these things, right, like these 156 connectors that I have here, these are rated, I think, to work between 18 and 24 gauge wire. That's Molex's specification. They changed the size of some of these wings, and we will get to some graphics here to show you what these things are, or where these things will go. I'm hoping I can get them on camera, but if not, I do have some visuals that we can use. Actually, let's start. Hell. OK, to do this, we're going to do a 0.156 connector on this 18 gauge wire. The first thing we need, wire strippers. Stripping the correct length of wire is very important when it comes to getting one of these crimps secure and correct. It really comes with experience, how much you will need to strip. I hate to say that, but it's true. But you will do this a few times and be like, ah, that's right. We have an exposed end here. This might be too long. But what we can do is I can put this, this connector here. We'll stick it onto the wire, and we'll look and see what we've got. You can see that you have 2 separate crimping areas, let's call them. This one here, the smaller one that's closer towards the tip of the pin, these things get crushed and go around the wire. The larger wings in the back, those go around the insulation. So what it does is, again, these sit here and they conduct with whatever the wire is putting out. And this guy's here kind of for strain relief. And that is supposed to go around and keep it evening the amount of tug you can put on these things, right? But what we want to do is we want to make sure that the Molex specification is to have just about, I think it's 1 wire thickness sticking out past the contact crimp, right? Can you pull up the good crimp image? Let's just pull that up and you can kind of see. I can't see now, but I did find these images. I took these images from Clay Harrell's pin repair website, and I'm going to have Steve throw the link to this article in there, and it's great, and it has a lot of information and a lot of things I'm sure I'm glossing over that I should be talking about. But there's good images from actual Molex saying how all these things should be done. But if you look at that image, right, We have the insulation crimp going around just the insulation, the contact area side of the crimp going around the conductive bit, and just a teeny bit sticking through. Why don't you pull up the, did I put one in there that says too long?
Too long.
There we go. So that's wrong, right? We don't want the wire sticking way up into the pin because that could interfere with the way the pin needs to compress when it goes into the housing. And I think that's pretty much the only reason. And then on the other end of that, right, you don't want it to be too short. If you have the contact area crimp going down around an area that is not sizable enough, it's not going to have good conductivity. So you have to find that good center ground. This is going to take a lot of practice. I have a lot of people calling when I spent more times on the phones at Marco, saying it's like, well, how many of these pins do I need? It's like, well, you need 20, but you should buy 40. You should buy 50. I was like, why? Well, you're going to screw up, right? If you've never done this before, you definitely want to have more so you can practice like this. If we were working in the back of a game right now and we were repinning, what a lot of people say, if we were repinning a connector on a Bally game or something like that, if we screw up, we have to cut valuable millimeters off of this harness. And if you kept practicing and doing it wrong, you're going to shorten these wires considerably, and you don't want to do that. So I definitely recommend practicing a lot before you actually do this on your game. It's not hard, but you want to have good form. So wire strippers, we need those. Use them. You'll figure out the length. The other tool you need is this Molex crimping tool. We do sell one of these on our website. I like this one. I've had this one for like 10 years. It's very, 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 very robust. You've got a couple different jaw sizes on this thing, and there are like actual technical specifications of which connector you're supposed to use for each one, but you will find which ones work best for you. Generally, when I'm doing these smaller ones, the 0.100s and the 0.156s, this, what is this, jaw size E? This will work for the 0.100s, and it will also work for the 0.156 like contact crimp. And then for the insulation crimp on the bigger ones, I'll use the next jaw size up. You can use this section right here to smash, what are they called? Like spade connectors and stuff like that, insulated spade connectors. If you see, the bottom is kind of a cup, and then the top kind of has a cup, but with a V pointing back down towards the bottom. What that does is when you squish it inside of that plier, it brings these things down into a shape like this. So it sits on the insulation and really pushes them, kind of puts prongs into the insulation.
Mofcol has a quick question.
Yeah, what's up? Sorry, I'll stop talking.
No, you're good. You're good. Is a ratcheting crimper better than a standard crimper, or does it even matter?
I bet a ratcheting crimper would get you more consistent results, but they are expensive and bulkier, so I tend to get the simpler tool. I don't know. Honestly, I've never used one, but I'm assuming that the ratcheting ones are definitely a little bit more consistent. There is another image, just pull it up now. I think it's called bad crimp or small crimp or crushed crimp or something.
Gotcha.
There is a way when if you are using like Hulk strength, you can crush the contact crimp side, and when you crush it down, you might think it's like, oh, I'm going to get this one nice and tight, and then you crush it. But what it does is it actually deforms the pin and the actual contact, and it makes it difficult to fit into the housing sometimes. So you want to make sure you're not crushing. And again, like on those Molex drawings, they have, measure it here with a micrometer to figure out. But again, right, like these things are rated, right? I mean, this is like aeronautical, automotive defense style crap, right? They need to be able to measure.
Automotive defense, that's my favorite department.
Yeah, automotive defense. Let's build some tanks. They have to find like a quality check, right? So when people are doing these, or if a machine is doing these, a lot of the times machines are doing these. It's just our weird hobby where we do hand tools. They have to be able to quality check them somehow. So again, this is stuff that's like way over my head. I'm not an engineer, but
so everybody's saying they really prefer the ratcheting crimp tool, and they say you can get them kind of cheap on Amazon.
There you go.
So
I've never used one. If you ever see me change my mind, I'm open to it. But this is very cheap. It's lasted me for 10 years, and it fits snugly in the back of my toolbox, just the way I like it. So I'll try one. I'd like to check one out. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this thing up, right? We're going to position this one's goofy. I don't like this one.
Well, while you're taking a little break, we'll mention the free shipping code for this week is PT-REPEN. And I'll put it in the chat right now. That's free shipping for all domestic orders over $99.
Yeah. So order a butt ton of Molex stuff and make yourself little like parts boxes like I have. Is this in view? Is this like good at all?
Oh, you've still got the crushed thing up. My bad.
Hey, no, that's cool. Actually, I'm very disappointed with my wire
There we
stripping I did here. I'm going to restrip this and make it look a little cleaner.
Hey, the fills.
Yo.
And Ken says sometimes you need a ratcheting crimper and the normal style crimper. Said different situations call for different things.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like I'm not saying this is a prove me wrong, but like why do you think you need a ratcheting crimper in certain situations? Again, this is the only I bought this a long time ago, and this is all I've ever used. Other than consistency, what does a ratcheting crimper bring to the table? I'm very curious. Is it speed? Okay, so we've got a length of wire. We've got a pin. Am I in the right pan?
Mm-hmm. Yep, you're good.
We're going to hold this up, right? We want to get the insulation side on the insulation. We want to make sure that the contact side, the conductive crimp, is on the conductive bit. I'm going to look at it closely here while I hold it up. And I think this is just about right. I have maybe 1 wire's width worth of wire sticking out the end, just a teeny bit, And I have, also a teeny bit of space where I can see the insulation between the 2 slits. So I'm going to hold this pin in place like this. I'm going to grab my crimper, and I'm going to try to bring this as far back as possible. We want to make sure we don't crush the springy part in the crimpers while we're, again, trying to make this crimp. Right? So I'm going to open the jaws, bring it back, crimp it down, make sure it's pushed far back. And then, again, we're not using Hulk strength. We are crushing. And we have a little crimp here. And it looks nice. We're going to do the same thing with the insulation. I'm going to use the D size on my, my crimping tool here. Make sure I have it nice and centered. And I am going to try to get a better camera angle than actually control the thing, but crimp it down.
Daniel from Croatia says that the ratchet tool is better for securing the pen to not fall off.
Okay, yeah.
DWISP02 says ratcheting crimpers help hold the replacement pen 1 click to hold pen. And
That's
he also
amazing.
says, hey, by the way, LOL.
Hi, LOL.
Hey, DWISP.
Thank you for that. I was thinking, I did see some online the other day that were, they did say they held the pin, and I was going to say, that's probably the hardest thing. Other than figuring out how to get the crimp correct and look good and be consistent, the hardest part is holding the pin while you're crimping. Especially these teeny little guys. These things eat the tips of my fingertips up when I'm doing Bally games. So I am going to buy a set of ratcheting crimpers, and I'll see. Maybe it's time to put these in the auxiliary toolbox. But, I mean, I think this looks pretty good. What?
The Phil's Pinball says, excuse me, I'm going to have repinning nightmares tonight where I'm surrounded by Bally's and Gottlieb machines and repinning for days.
Oh, it's fun. It's cathartic. Put on a good album, get yourself a nice drink, and just go to work. I think the reason that this pin is kind of off-centered, it's like looks like it's one side's a little higher than the other. I believe that's just in the way that this pin is cut, where the wings have their tips facing opposite direction. If that comes through on the camera at all. So I was going to say I might have crushed it a little too hard, but I think this is a good crimp, right? We've got something that's solid. It's not all crushy and goofy looking on the conductive side. It's nice and tight around the insulation. It's giving it that nice bear hug with a little bit of grip from those wings. This looks good. This isn't crushed down either.
Got a special request from Charlie Martin. Hey, Charlie, hope you're doing good, man.
Hey.
He wants to know if you can show a double wire to single pin technique.
Oh, I hate you. Yeah, I'll do that. I did a bunch of that. I did a bunch of that this weekend at a friend of the show, Steve's house, while I was working on his Bride of Pinbot he bought, and someone redid that GI connector, like the AC connector, so bad. Like a bunch of the pins were in the wrong spot, and it just looked very awful. But yeah, let's do that. That's an advanced technique, but I think that's useful. I wanted to do it in real life, like on an actual game, but let's do that now too. And we'll do that before we move on. Right, now once we have this, again, if we're rebuilding it, wow, that was a weird accent. If we're rebuilding a connector, we are taking a wire that's on the harness, and generally if I'm rebuilding a connector, I do it one at a time. Sometimes on the Bally games, I've memorized the order they go in on like the transformer board, but the manuals do have the order in the way you can read color codes, but we will go over that when we finally do our Bally episodes. But again, one at a time, but if we were rebuilding a connector, we would have a new housing. We would slip it in. There's a locking prong. And what that does is it gets put in on the side that has the corresponding opening. Slide this thing in, and we have the start of a harness. It's awesome. It's very, very relaxing. I don't think anyone should have nightmares about
You're crazy, man.
I love it. It feels great. The other thing, when you have these sorts of connectors too, you can use like a small screwdriver to depress that lock tang and pull them out. So, yeah. Let's double stuff one. This is dirty. They are not designed to do this, and it is it's not easy. But this is what you will have to do if you are repinning. I'm going to take this just in case I need a jumper wire.
The Phils say you could. He wants to know if he can send you all his Bally and Gottlieb wiring harnesses if you find it so relaxing.
I do. You can send me the games. I need some Bally games to work on.
Oh.
I do. No, I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons I fell in love with pinballs. Everyone at the shop hated doing motorcycle, the wiring, right? And no one understood how electricity worked, but I was fascinated by it. I loved making wiring harnesses. I'm a weirdo. We're all a little weird. If you say you're not weird, you're not being truthful with yourself. You like pinball. Come on.
Come on.
So what we're going over here is on on the WPC games, early WPC games and System 11 games. They had AC power for the general illumination lights, and they were like daisy chained. One, it was like a yellow wire, and then there was a yellow and white, and that had another wire that would go to the pin next to it. If you know what you're looking at here, it'll make more sense. I'm not going to try to explain it. But what we have to do is we have to shove 2 wires into 1 pin. Not easy. I'm going to cut this wire here, so we have 2 ends to work with. And generally what I'll do is I'll strip one end just a teeny bit longer to give me more crimping space to work with. This goes against everything I was just saying about making sure everything fits nicely and snugly, and you have 1 wire length, this and that, and it's my German coming out. Everything must be right, and if it's not, you're doing it wrong. But in this case, we kind of have to bend the rules a little bit, because with an IDC connector, you would be able to use 1 long wire and push it through the IDC displacement thing, and then wrap that wire around to the next position and insert it that way.
And Mothcold, no, Trifurcons and standard terminals can use the same housing.
Yes. Now, okay, that being said, there are some housings do get a little grumpier with the Trifurcon pins. If you are buying good quality housings, they don't get as grumpy. But if you're trying to reuse like older housings, sometimes I've had problems with them fitting, which is why I mostly just carry standard 156 pins instead of Trifurcon. I'm going to strip this one a teeny bit longer, just so we have a little bit more room to work with. And we can always cut the wire down. So, okay, so let's say this. We are going to patch our AC connection here. Generally, what I'll do is I'll try to keep the pin that is going, I'll call the pin the bottom, right? We'll set this thing up. We'll set the bottom wire up nicely, and we will very disgustingly lay the top wire on top. It is a little long. I'm going to cut it down.
Is that a quote from you?
What?
If it's not tight, you're not doing it, or wait a minute, if it's not right, you're doing it wrong?
No.
Did he mean tight?
If it's not tight, yeah.
You're doing it wrong.
If your pinball game's not broken, you're doing it wrong too, because that means you're not using it.
Roller Pinball. And Colin, I don't know. It may be something to do with YouTube links coming through the Twitch and our Restream chat aggregator. So it may not allow links from YouTube.
Yeah, we've had problems with YouTube. If you want to, jump over on Twitch, and you don't need an account to watch on Twitch either. So we have a mess that looks like this. This is hard to show because I need to pinch it, right? But we've got the shorter wire in here. We have a longer wire, like disgustingly hanging over. And I am going to use some He-Man strength to try to get these things crimped. This is not right. Everything about this is wrong. But sometimes we need to do these things to get these things to fit, right? So now we've got them. Like, they are both crimped inside there, but getting the insulation is a lot harder. This does take a bit of balance. I don't know if having a ratcheting crimper might help in this situation. I'm not sure how open they are, how easy it is to do this kind of incorrect action. But sometimes what I'll do here, instead of like really crushing the wire, because you can crush the wire with these things and start ripping strands when they are bent at a strange angle like that. Can you see how that top wire is coming in really extreme? I will use the largest crimp size, the C, to give it a very gentle insulation crimp like that. And that is disgusting and awful, but it will work, because now we can go here, put another crimp end on, and we can stuff them in as we need to for the general illumination.
So if you used a terminal for a larger gauge wire, would that help with double stuffing? I
don't know. I mean, the thing is, I'll be quite honest. I keep my tools simple, and I keep like what I use 90% of the time, right? I'm not doing this all the time, so I generally won't carry special tools to do it. I can make it work like this, so that's just how I do it. Would that help? It probably would. Maybe that's something I should experiment with sometime, but again, this is gross and nasty, but when it's inside your pinball game, it is not going to get, actually I didn't crush that enough. I'm gonna step it down to the D ring and kind of see if we can get that insulation to crush in a little more. There's a wire sticking out. It's pretty sloppy. But what we need to do, again, is when you do put this into your pinball game, it is going to be sitting on a driver board, and it's not going to be moving around a lot. This will work. It looks awful, and I kind of feel embarrassed doing it on camera, but it did the job. They're not coming out. I'm yanking on them, right? So this will work.
Bozo the Clown 321, what's happening, man? He's got a question. Would it be better to solder two wires into one before the crimp? Or in other cases where the wire in the IDC loops to two connectors, solder one wire to two so that you can crimp two connections? Wouldn't be any crimping involved with an IDC, right?
No, not with the IDC, but that's also kind of just, this works, and to me it's easier than trying to solder things together. You don't generally want to solder a wire before you you crimp it into one of these things, because you can break the tangs. Solder is soft, but I don't know, give it a shot. It might work, but I don't want you to, it might help, it might not help with getting this thing as small and as clean as it needs to be. It could deform the pin, and that's going to make it a lot harder to get it into the connector.
Yeah, DWIS says he's tried it, but the solder makes it difficult to crimp.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. This is doable, right? You just need one end to have a little bit longer wire. It's not ideal, but it does work. Using a larger gauge connector, that could be possible. I'm not sure how much larger these go. But yeah, that being said too, I wouldn't be able to, I have two different size standard or style standard IDC or 156 connectors in here. See that insulation crimp there, how short it is?
It's a little blurry. Maybe pull it back a little bit. Yeah, there you go.
See how short that guy is versus, well, this is a trifurcon pin, but the other one I was using had wings like that. They're much taller. You wouldn't be able to do that double wire with this short one as you would with this one. So you do have to choose your pins wisely. I don't know where these came from. I kind of don't like them. I want to go through all my wires or connectors and pull these things out just in case. But yeah, I don't know. Was that helpful? You made me do that, Charlie. Thanks.
Good job, Charlie.
I'll cut this off now.
Oh, Bozo said, I don't mean soldering right in or in front of the crimp, I mean like 3 or 4 inches before it, and extending the wire to the crimp point. So if you connected the wires like way far back.
Yeah, I mean that might help hold them together. But I'd suggest you just kind of try to get the dexterity in place to hold it before you crimp it. I mean, that's fine, right? Or you use a clothespin and hold these things together, a chip clip or a paper clip, you know what I mean, to keep those wires kind of together. But, usually, I wouldn't want to strip a bunch of wire away in a wiring harness because that is significantly reducing the amount of, wire I have to work with. It makes it a lot more difficult, unless you were going to extend the harness when, again, it's kind of making something a little more complicated than it might need to be. With just a little bit of practice with your dexterity, you'll probably be able to get it.
And thanks for jumping in, D-Wisp. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I like answering questions like that because it makes me think, like, how viable is that? Let's do a small guy. I don't like these small guys. Phil's going to be like, well, I just thought you said you liked it so much.
Yeah, it's so relaxing.
It
so
is.
Therapeutic.
It is. It's nice because the end result is so lovely. Small wire, 22 gauge. We are going to strip off a teeny bit. That was a lot, and I kind of used too much pressure, and I started pulling the strands of wire. These are just pieces of wire I found on the floor. So if we were using an actual wire in the harness, I wouldn't be able to yank the wire through the harness or the sheathing like that, the insulation.
Charlie, we do have some connector kits, but nothing that's just like a terminal and associated parts kit. They're all board specific.
Man, are these things getting dull, or am I just kind of like losing my touch when it comes to stripping wire? Okay, 3rd time's a charm. It is harder to strip skinny wires with this type of...
I think Black Cat Pinball is a man after your own heart. Says, I always try to change my IDCs to Molex if possible. How do you feel about IDC connectors versus Molex? I think I know the answer to that.
The answer is they are evil and they deserve no place in your pinball machines. But okay, here's a pro tip. Even though they are evil and they're awful and you should get rid of all of them, don't go creating problems where there aren't problems, right? Don't just go and be like, Kyle said that these are all bad, so I'm going to change all my connectors. That's a total gigantic waste of time. Repair these things when they break. Don't go trying to prevent a repair and then maybe causing a problem. They will work, but there is a time when they will fail, and then you go in and fix it instead of just kind of, and again, it's like, well, but you said don't, you will have to replace them eventually. Yeah, but don't waste your time doing it now, right? Go fix other problems instead of possibly creating new ones.
Do you ever use hemostats to hold your wire while you're soldering?
No, I should. I don't have a lot of feeling in my fingers anymore. Between riding dirt bikes and motorcycles, an unfortunate time when I smoked cigarettes, and soldering irons, my nerve endings are kind of sad in my fingers. Okay, I got some wire stripped on this wire. It is way too long. I'm going to stick this teeny little pin up, and oh man, that thing is like really sticking almost to the pin. We're going to cut off a teeny bit here. This is hard. I'm sorry if it's hard to see this stuff. If we had some nicer cameras.
Hey, Elusive Ninja.
Hey, welcome back.
Yeah, send him some stickers. He'll put them on there.
Yeah, I love stickers. If anyone sends me stickers, we can do a sticker exchange.
Sticker swap.
If you're in a band, I like band stickers too. This is hard. I'm going to use 2 hands and get really close. Maybe you'll see up my nose or something. But just look at the spaces here, right? You just don't have a lot of room for error when it comes to these small crimps. And you also have to make sure you are not going to crush this pin, right, the tip, when you are using this large plier. You don't have a lot of space. So generally what I'll do when I try to fit these guys, again, you are holding the wire in your thumb here, you're holding the butt of this pin like this, and leaving just a teeny bit of space for these crimpers to do their job. But what I'll try to do is I'll try to get this thing back, crimp it down, and then bring it forward to ensure that I'm not you know, crushing the pin here. That's sad, because you'll get a really nice crimp, and you'll be like, oh man, I flattened the thing.
Yeah, Elusive Ninja, you're late to class, but yeah, Moto has been deluged by Hurricane Sally, and she has no power or internet. So I'm filling in today. Sorry for the disappointment.
Thanks for being here, Steve. I think Emoto has power again. She has a generator, but the cell phone lines are like so overloaded, and of course, there's no internet. So,
Roller Pinball says I needed a Moto face on a stick. How awesome would that be?
That would be awesome.
I'm totally
I mean, if you
down.
shaved your beard, you guys kind of have an uncanny resemblance, right? No. Okay.
I need the braids too. So.
Ooh. I guess that's why I should grow my hair longer. I'm pinching this thing. I've got the butt, the insulation side, kind of in my thumbs. I've got it positioned kind of where it needs to be. These are a lot harder than the bigger ones. I'm just going to say, if I had the ratcheting ones, we wouldn't be having this problem, right? But it's doable. I'm going to get this thing on, crimp it down a teeny bit, make sure that I am not squishing the pin, which I am not, and now I will crush. And this just takes practice. You have to do this a bunch before you should be working on your game. Again, if you're going to order this stuff from us, or if you buy like one of our connector kits for your Bally game, go throw another 20, 30 of these things into your cart and go find some scrap wire or something and just practice, 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 practice. Your results will be so much nicer when you're done.
So yeah, I am kind of a Motorhead fan, but
yeah, let me. I wasn't going to say it.
But Phil says new nightmares are being made. I guess that's me with the Emoto face stick. And Daniel says,
well, I'm happy with that.
You can use adjusting pliers for the wire stripping so that you have the exact length you need each time.
Yep, you can. Again, I'm really cheap, and I like to use the cheapest tools possible, and I've kind of gotten good at using this stuff, even though I was just struggling with it. I just find that with those things, at least the ones that I've owned, maybe they were never very good ones, but they just never stripped as nice as I needed them to be, or they were not as versatile as I needed them to be. And I find that these very simple wire strippers to be the most versatile tool, which is, again, the reason I keep it in my toolbox, and because it's small. And because this thing weighs like 50 pounds, and I'm not very strong. These are a little bit trickier to get into their housings, but it's doable. I'm very proud of this. This one actually is very picturesque.
That looks beautiful. Yeah.
Molex would be very proud of me.
It's gorgeous.
I'm going to stick this sucker in, and there you go. A lot of the times when you're doing these small guys, it's going to be on a Bally game. Bally games do use Molex connectors, so a lot of times on Bally games, you are literally repinning. You are removing wires from the original housing, as long as it's not damaged, and you are cutting, installing a new pin, and then putting the wire back in its position. Technically, you are not repinning, I guess, when you're removing things from a Williams game or replacing an IDC connector, so that would, I mean, it's essentially the same thing, but I do carry a few of these around, even though most of the times with the Bally games, you do have a connector already inside of the game. So, and I guess you need to use them in other places, like on TNA. Oh no, TNA uses 156s. I don't know. I've been ripping IDC connectors out of TNA all day long. It feels great, and the game works better now. So, again, to get these things out, you can use a teeny screwdriver or a pick. These are harder to get out than the bigger pins. I'm not going to do this on camera, but we will crush it, and bam, now it's out. So, there you go. You can do it. But I guess I would recommend just practice. And it does take dexterity. You do need to have strong fingertips and you know, have the feeling, figure out where to hold these things. It just practice, practice, practice. This is the one thing, soldering and redoing these connectors well does take a lot of practice.
Did you bring any IDC connectors with you today? Do you have an example of one?
Yeah, right here.
Indy Pen says he's not familiar with them. And
oh, okay.
Like to see it.
I mean, no, this belongs nowhere in your toolbox. The only reason this is in my toolbox is because I have this sacrificial wiring harness. An IDC connector, what it is on an assembly line, right? You've got this connector. The operator will lay the wires down across the positions, and then a big press will come in and crush all of these wires into this connector. And what it is you have a plastic housing and you have a pin, very similar to this. But the pin at the top, instead of having something that surrounds and gives a nice bear hug, it's kind of like a set of pincers, right? You've got like two sets of knives very close to each other, and they get pressed down around these wires, and it cuts the insulation, thus insulation displacement, right? You're putting a teeny little slit in the insulation, and you have a contact point against the wire that is about as wide as this screwdriver. So again, they're rated for what they need to do. They work, but they're garbage, and they're not meant for longevity. So get rid of them. Get rid of them. You can buy IDC presses and IDC connectors all day long, but they're worse, right? There's no reason to not upgrade something like that when you have the chance to. It does take special tools. It does take practice, but I hate them. But this is an IDC connector. Every System 11, every Williams game from, what was the first one? Hot Tip? Hot Tip to freaking Attack from Mars uses these connectors. All the Stern games from...
Really? Hot Tip uses IDC?
I'm pretty sure.
The first solid state?
I
Really?
think so.
Okay.
Open up Flash. Let's look. I'm pretty sure they do. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just like, they're cheap, right? You'd have to set up a lot of tooling to do something like this with these crimp connectors. Or if you were doing it by hand, it would take a long time. This is very easy, quick, and reliable. So that's why they're used, right? You're just like, Kyle, well, if they're so bad, why are they in the game? It's like, well, because they're cheap and easy. That's it, right? That is the benefit to using these connectors. So
Nitro G, yeah, 99, probably 100% of solid state pinball machines. Well, I don't know.
No, Bally didn't.
No, I would say use some sort of Molex or IDC connector.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, because again, the connectors are there so you can remove things for service. If these wires were all soldered to the headers on the computer, it would be a giant pain in the butt to remove your computer to do service on it or something, right? So you need these connectors. But unfortunately, I guess by design, and it's not bad, the connector is the weak point because the connector is rebuildable. But it's a necessary evil.
And 156 and 100 are the size, or the distance between pins?
Yep, the distance between the pins in inches.
Right, in inches.
0.100 inches apart, 0.156 inches apart. But again, you don't need to get out calipers to measure this stuff. These things are teeny. These are a lot bigger. So you'll be able to start identifying them by vision soon. You don't see a lot of 0.100 connectors on many games, mostly Bally games. Bally games loved them. The 6800 and the 6803 system used a lot of them. But most games used 156 stuff.
Yeah, why do they say 0.100 and not just 0.1? Why you got to put the zeros on there?
Because dudes in lab coats want to make things complicated. A bunch of nerds, come on. I have way too many of these things in this teeny box. I'm not even going to try closing it. Actually, I will because it'll go flying across the room if I don't close it.
PinDaddy41 wants to know if it's all IDC connectors or just the board ones. He says, don't you like the IDC lamp sockets?
IDC lamp sockets?
You know, like the ones that are in some of the Stern games, some of the Williams games.
No.
They fit into the inserts.
No, they're annoying too because again, it's like one bad tug and the thing comes out of the connector, right? Like again though, but don't go creating problems where you don't need to. But watch, like, is this in frame?
Yep.
There you go. Your wire's gone. Now that took some force, right? But again, if like you didn't know what you were doing, you're like, hey, dude, go unplug my computer for me, and they grab it by the wires, you'd rip these things out. It's just not solid.
Do you have an IDC punch tool in your toolbox?
Nope. Nope. I will not. It's just, again, it's like time is money, and my time is valuable, but I don't want to do crappy work like that. To me, it's crappy. I know people might not agree with that, but you know what? Right now, this is my show, and I think I don't like them, so I replace them all the time. It's worth it to me. It might avoid a service call, and I walk away happy knowing I removed another IDC connector from a pinball game.
So Colin has a pretty good question.
Okay.
How do you deal with a continuous wire in an IDC connector when you're changing it to Molex? Do you cut it and double it up?
Yep, that's what we just did.
Okay, cool.
You missed that maybe a minute ago, but we, when you are working with like especially the most common application you'll see this is the general illumination connectors on System 11 and WPC games. You will have to do something that is not 100% kosher, but you can make it work. You will have to double them up. If you didn't see that, when it's over, watch the VOD. It was right after I did the first 156 connector. And that's a valuable skill to do, to have, when you are doing those GI fixes. So, the other style, and we'll just do one of these, and we're just going to open up for a fun discussion because I didn't really want to go undoing them on my game, so I figured we'd just do some bench work. But let's do a good Q&A, right?
Daniel says, do you have any System 80 edge connectors in your box?
Yes, actually I do. I have a bunch of original ones that I spent way too much money for. And then I have a bunch of ones I bought from a Chinese seller that are pretty decent, but I do not remember where they went. I don't remember where I got them. I think I got them on Alibaba or something.
Hey, Teltaslo.
These, so here, let's show the difference here too. I think the ones I got from Alibaba are, sorry, my parts box is there. I think the ones I got from Alibaba are gold, but these are an edge connector. There are times when you can use a standard .156 connector, a pin, in an edge connector. Most Gottlieb games, that is kosher to do. If you're adding the ground wires or something like that on the interconnect boards or something.
Mothcole called you the IDC Terminator.
I really am. I dislike them.
Oh.
So, yeah, okay, I think the ones I got from Alibaba are these gold ones. And they're not perfect, but these edge connectors are super obsolete. It's like something that hasn't been used in forever. And it would be really nice if someone that's like super rich and is really into like video games or something, like wants to get these things remade, because it would be great. But what these are is there are circuit boards that have a connector on one side. And what these things do is they fit into a housing that is kind of like one of our 156 housings, but they have a, it's kind of like a, it's open and it's got a slot. And what they do is these things slide on, and the circuit board that has the printed side press up against these things. Thus an edge connector. They push onto the edge of a board. And these are different than a standard .156. You can see they are much longer. The pins stick up higher. They are bifurcated. I don't know why that matters, but they are. And they compress quite a bit. I think what it is when the actual PCB comes in up against the circuit board, they squish down a lot. So what it is they need to be flat and at this kind of acute angle to make good contact with the circuit board. Where if we were to use a standard 156 pin, and again,
Elusive Ninja says he's got boxes of them in the warehouse, he thinks.
Hey, you know how to get a hold of me, right?
And Jacob says double-sided edge connectors are the rarity.
Yeah, double-sided edge connectors are really hard to find. The pins are difficult to find a substitute for, but the actual connectors themselves are almost obsolete. Or I mean, they are obsolete, and you can't find them anymore. It's annoying, but we will prevail and we'll figure something out. So if you look at these things in profile next to each other, you see how this comes up at like a big flat angle, and this kind of sits a little bit flatter. So when the circuit board gets pressed over this guy, it just has more contact surface. This thing is designed to go against a pin, right? So it doesn't need to have those, that kink, I don't know.
It says, yeah, a whole box of edge connectors. He's going to double check, but
I want some, please. I found these, and these kind of work. They don't sit up as nice. I use them in things that don't deserve the real thing. But these gold ones, you see how they're a little bit flatter? Sometimes I need to pop them out of their little retainer back here, and they work okay. When I'm repairing like JAMA video game harnesses or something like that.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, Jacob. Sorry to interrupt.
What's up?
But he said that he bought a 56 solderable JAMA connector and cut it down. to size for his ADB.
Yep. Yeah.
So
No, that's totally
brilliant.
doable.
Yeah.
You can get lots of edge connectors still that are larger. And they might have the keyways in different spots, but you can just cut the keyways out and cut the edge connectors down, and that's kind of what you have to do. But here's the thing, though. A lot of times, those ADB edge connectors are still good. They just need to be re-pinned, and I have had success using these .156 pins in place of the edge connector pin. So, you know, your mileage may vary, but it's been a long time since I've actually had to replace the ADB interconnect plugs. I've just had to replace some of these pins. So anyways, edge connector wires, this is all I have. This is the rest of my life's supply. So this is why I don't work on video games, because I need to save these for pinball. Anywho, we've talked about these guys before a bazillion times, but our Molex connectors that are the male-female pins. These are a little more expensive, so I'm not going to crimp away with these guys. If we want an example, I will. We have done these before. I think we did it on roller games once, but these are another flavor. These guys, this is called a .093 connector, common in pinball. You've got your male pin, your female pin. I'm not going to go much further, but you know, they go like that, and that is why they're called male and female. But you can use the same tools to crimp these guys. You can see that they've got really big insulation tangs and connector tangs here, so you might not want to use the smallest crimp size when you're using the judging on the tang, right? If you use the small ones on these, sometimes they'll just bend and crack. You might need to step them up. They do make these in many different sizes for many different sizes of wire. These are the .062 connectors. They are much smaller. These are also used in pinball. And these, again, generally used on smaller wire, higher gauge wire. It would be not impossible, but very difficult to get this 18 gauge wire to sit in this guy nicely if this is focusing at all. So I don't know. Do we need to crimp these things?
Anybody want to see him crimp a .062 and a .093?
Or does Kyle get to save his
his 10-cent
8 cents? Yeah. I don't think there's no again, I'll do it, but there's nothing different about these that you'd need to watch out for. You would use basically the same fundamentals you would use to do the larger .156 connectors when you're doing these guys. These might be for a larger gauge wire, so the 18 gauge might be on the smaller side of the range for this particular pin that I have. Judging by the size of the opening here, it could be like an 18 to 12 gauge connector or wire or something. I don't know. But they do use these a lot. So common usage for these are the power plugs that go from the transformer that help you set your voltage. You'll see these a lot on older Williams games between the cabinet and the head harnesses. You will use a lot of the .062s in those applications. The 093s they're big. I don't know. I can't really think of many other places. What are you laughing about?
Oh, Daniel says they are too expensive to crimp.
They aren't. I'm just.
I totally agree. 8 cents a terminal, man.
Come on, man. How am I supposed to afford all this?
Not just for education.
How am I supposed to afford all this? All my weekend time, you know. Hell, let's just do one. I probably have more of these female ones than not, but.
So did you show how they insert into each other, though?
Oh, yeah.
You did?
I did.
Yeah,
I tried not to make any
copulation
jokes, you know. It's hard. Oh.
Hey, Tess Bishop, we'll get to that question in the Q&A afterwards.
I like Q&As. I'm sorry we didn't get to do a Q&A before, but.
And Tilt put up a link to our bifurcated terminals.
Those shouldn't be on the website. I thought I took those off. We did have some bifurcated terminals that looked like they might have been a good substitute, but they were not. Will you pull that part number aside so I can remember? Don't buy those yet.
I've got it. I've got it.
Don't buy those yet, please. What I'm going to do is we are going to use, with this pin, okay, again, we've got a bit of wire here. We are going to get the insulation tangs around the insulation. We are going, I need a little bit more. I don't have a wire's width sticking out. I'll stick that back in there.
I would think so, Elusive Ninja.
It's a little too long now.
The edge connectors in Qbert are the same as System 80.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I would think so, yeah.
Gottlieb's video and pinball divisions really worked pretty close. Get that sucker in there. I am going to use the D, the center press on this plier for the larger tangs here, so we don't do any foldy breaky action. And I'm going to crush, and that felt good. This is the one you really want to inspect and make sure, oh man, that looks lovely. Check that out. Does that focus at all?
Maybe pull it back just a little bit.
You see how it's got like a nice, it kind of looks like a, it kind of looks like a butt. You've got like a nice, it's two, rounded bits and then a nice flat line in the center. It's got a, and that means you've done it right? Those tangs have reshaped themselves from being straight up and down to folding in on each other and pressing together around the wire. And that's what you're looking for. If we use the smaller side, what might have happened is those things would be forced into each other like this, and then they crumple together instead of coming together nicely and folding down. And this is what you need to do. What?
Elusive Ninja says, well, I mean to quote Kyle, it's Gottlieb. They're crazy.
They were crazy. Great, though.
And Daniel says, almost factory crimp, Kyle. He's proud.
Hey, thank you. I tried. What you want to do, though, is I hate to do this. It's so dorky, but like watching, right? Like using all your senses when you're doing this kind of stuff, especially when you're learning. When you crimp and you feel it come together nice, you can feel it in your wrist. And you're like, that was a good one. But sometimes, like sitting here and using, I'm going to use the C, because these tangs are gigantic. And I'm going to sit here and I'm going to watch. And you can see what these things do. Does that come in focus at all?
Maybe up and back a little. There you go.
Can you see those things kind of folding in against each other and then now pressing into the insulation like that? Did that come together at all?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're looking for. This one's not perfect, actually. I might have wanted to use the smaller one. Actually, yeah, that was not good. Check it out. You see that? That shouldn't be that much larger than the crimp in front of it. We used the incorrect size clamp. Can you rescue this? Maybe. Let's see. I'm going to step it down to the smaller size. And what it might do is it might just push everything together and it might break the crimp. It's going to be hard to center it because it's a weird shape now. I might need to kind of press it a little bit. At this point, I would cut and redo. Because we know that that's not good. This might not even fit in the connector well. Hell, let's try. We might be able to get away with it, but I wouldn't be proud of that as a teaching moment, right? It fits in fine, but I'm not happy with it. It would bug me.
I'd be okay with it personally. That's just me.
You've got these tools here. These are your extractor tools. We've talked about these before. You kind of only have one chance to get these things out clean. What they do is they gather up the tang. See those tangs that stick out? They're coming out at an angle down and away. What this thing does is it gathers those tangs up and allows us to extract the pin. So when you use these things, you kind of have one chance to do it right. Stick it in and gather, twist, twist. Start putting a little bit more pressure until you can kind of feel the tangs. You can feel them be collected in at one point. And once you feel that kind of twitch, you can push, or push like this. And you can fail miserably on camera. Like I said, you have one chance to do it cleanly. There we go.
There you go.
And what it does, though, is now you can reinsert this if you try to bend those tangs out a little bit, but I'm sure that if you talk to some Molex engineer, he'd be like, no, 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 that's, they're compromised now. You must cut and redo. So anyways, I would redo this. I wouldn't use one that looks like that, and you probably won't be able to gather it up in your tool to make it look any better. Or maybe you can, and I'm just like that cool. Just be careful. Don't end up having a bad contact, right? Because a lot of times you'll go into your Bally game and be like, oh, I've got these bad connections, or someone on the internet said to just go repin this thing, right? Which might be the right answer, but you kind of want to have a little more background information first before you go jump in and do this stuff. The problem is a lot of people start doing this kind of stuff not knowing what they're doing and create more problems because they make a bad connection.
He is dancing with it, Test Bishop.
Who's dancing?
You're dancing with that terminal, man.
Oh yeah.
A little give and take.
I've got a set of Maltese grandparents, so I've got that Mediterranean kind of talking with your hands. Hey. Get that sucker out.
Do you know what size Pinball 122 would need for a 1977 solid-state Bally general illumination connection? They're in the high voltage area of the back box. He thinks it's J3. Would it be indicated in the manual schematic? Probably not.
Nope.
Yeah.
But it's on the Bally games, it's definitely a .156. If it's a general illumination connector, and is it on your transformer board?
It says it's in the high voltage area of the back box.
Yeah, so that's the transformer. Yep. So that's going to be they're going to be .156 connectors. And when you're doing those things, you definitely need to replace the headers along with the connectors. I wish I had an example right now, but if you have a brown, burnt, really nasty looking housing, that means that this thing is super tarnished. Once these things start getting tarnished and you don't have that nice, shiny contact surface, it starts having way more resistance than it's intended to. And that little buildup of resistance, right, will start heating the connector up more, right? So, okay, let's take it back. You replace just the housing. It's fresh. It looks great. New pins, lovely. But you have the crappy header still on the board. This thing's tarnished. You've got bad surface connections here. So you put those nice shiny pins against the crappy connector. And what it is since you're not, there's a bit of resistance now between the connector and this. And what that does is it starts to build up more heat. And more heat causes more tarnishing. And then once those pins start to heat up really bad, the pins start to tarnish. And then both of those things start to tarnish. And then it gets hot and it gets burnt. And that's why those connectors get burnt. You'd think it's like, that's silly. Like, just a little bit of not shiny can cause these things to burn up. It's like, yeah, they were grossly, grossly underrated. Oh, at the same time, the games also were not supposed to last as long as they have. So I think I read something from a Bally engineer who said that actually they were rated correctly from the manufacturer. But, again, the actual life cycle of a pinball game should have been 1 year. Right? There's absolutely no reason why, this Viking or this Xenon may have been on location for 3 or 4 years, right? The life cycle, they should have been rotated out and been either in the dump or sitting in a warehouse somewhere. So a lot of what we're running into isn't necessarily bad engineering, but we're trying to fix the sands of time, trying to rip our pinball machines apart. So anyways, sorry, I'm tirading right now. I think that is a pretty decent lesson on how to crimp. You can only learn so much by listening to me blab. I really recommend doing this. Practice makes perfect. And that was my TED Talk. Let's do a Q&A.
So yeah, we can start the Q&A.
I heard there was a question that may have been better suited for a Q&A.
Absolutely. Let me get back up to it. That was Test Bishop's question.
Let me also drink a little bit of this weird watermelon flavored water because my voice is gone.
Hey, do you mind repeating that question, Test Bishop? I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time scrolling the chat here.
Wow, is that many people? That many people are talking to us today?
Yeah, got a lot.
Thanks, y'all. This is slowly. I started to dread doing this because I was afraid that everyone's going to be clowning on me, and I get nervous getting on camera. But now it's I look forward to this every week so much because you guys are fun.
Thanks, Test Bishop. So. Test Bishop wants to know if you can speak to the advantages of spinner optos and why aren't they used more commonly? So I guess the spinner switch being an opto.
I mean, they're great, right? Because they don't have any resistance, so the spinner can go forever. But optos are expensive, and traditional micro switches are not expensive. So it probably gets budgeted in and out. Let's look at a brand new Stern game and see.
Thanks, Draugr. What brand new Stern game are you looking at back there, Kyle?
One that doesn't exist. What am I talking about?
I don't know.
Nothing. I think what it comes down to is things are expensive, right? And the cost of using adding the circuitry for like optical switches, the optical switches are generally run off of like their own control board. And if that control board can only run 8 to 10 switches or switch pairs or something like that, it's kind of hard to swing in the budget to add another board, right? Where it's like, well, hell, we'll just use the spinner design that's tried and true. I think it just comes down to cost because the benefits are huge, right? There's no resistance, so the spinners just go, and they're super cool. That being said, why the heck did Police Force use an optical spinner?
It's such a cool spinner, though.
It's super cool. I think it's a space constriction thing is what they ran into.
Just the size of that spinner is amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's probably it. But
yeah, I think Jacob is right that the only modern opto spinner for Stern would be in Beetles, and Tilt also said that JJP uses opto spinners, which
Yeah, JJP does a lot. And yeah, I forgot about Beetles. Yeah, definitely. I think it would be fun to add opto spinners to things, but at the same time, like, right, an opto spinner has no resistance, absolutely, but a very light micro switch also has basically no resistance too. So,
Oh, thanks, Daniel. That's awesome. He said he has learned how to fix the connector on his first pinball that he bought 10 years ago. Yes. It was a Bally Centaur 2. Oh. What a great game.
Yeah, I'd like to have a Centaur 2 just because the head is goofy. Centaur is my my holy grail pinball game. I've never owned one. I've never had the opportunity to own one, but I want one very badly.
Moff Cole has a question.
What's up?
Says he's doing his first playfield swap, and he saw a recommendation for Molexing all the solenoids under the playfield. Says it seems like another potential fail point. So would you recommend putting 3-pin Molex connectors on all of the solenoids?
I would recommend you against doing that like very vehemently. Like, do not do that. Just leave it as it is, man. Like, it works, right? Why create another fail point? Like you said, like again,
you'd still have to solder wires to the new coil, right?
Yep. You'd have to solder wires, but you'd have a quick release harness. But like, why, right? Is it really that much of a pain in the butt to go and get your soldering iron and go, come on, It's like, again, it's like you're creating more, you're creating the opportunity for more problems. And that is where, if I ever had to come and work on that game, my head would explode. Like, oh my God, what the hell, like I mentioned when we work on circuit boards and stuff, you want to make it look like you were never there. When it comes to playfield swaps, you try to make it look like you were never there, right? Make it look like it is as factory as possible, and that's very difficult to do.
Especially if you're ripping out all the IDC connectors.
Yeah, well, so there's some things that the factory did wrong, but we can do better, right? But when it comes to doing playfield swaps, I mean, I can't tell you, like the last 2 years I was working with Chris, all I was doing was fixing people's really crappy playfield swaps. Like every pinball game went up in value a ton because a playfield came out. So suddenly that makes it worth more because you need to spend dozens of hours and spend hundreds of dollars on a piece of wood. Anyways, I mean, I just spent so much time fixing people's playfield swaps. It's hard, and I'm sure you've realized like how much time and how difficult it is. But to make it look stock and not like a arts and crafts project is difficult. I don't like doing playfield swaps unless people are paying me lots of money. But I did it on Xenon. I don't own many of the games I've done playfield swaps on, funny enough. Mostly for customers.
So, Elusive Ninja, I'm having a hard time understanding your question, but if you want to rephrase it, it says, how often does a part fail? If it fails or might fail often, quick. Oh, I get it. That's a determination on whether or not you want to put a Molex connector on your coil. How often a part fails,
okay, so
if it fails often.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's a good example. I owned a Swords of Fury, and I had to replace some of the optos on the drop targets in the back. That's a pain in the ass. There is what? I mean, there's 5 drop targets, right? So that means that there are 5 solenoids, and there are also a bunch of wires, right, that go to the opto board, but those come off separately. But they didn't make that thing disassemblable, right? Now, if that was somewhere halfway up the playfield, that would be great. It would be so easy to work on. But the thing's in the bottom left of the cabinet. So the first thing I did when I had to take that thing out, I found a good spot, cut, and I put a Molex connector between the two. So like if you're doing something to increase the serviceability, then absolutely that's in your best interest. But you know, it's like I'm going to put a Molex connector for my slingshot and this pop bumper. It's like, oh, you're just wasting your time and causing potential problems. So again, it's like, you know, people always ask me, it's like, hey, my pinball game's not working. Well, it's like, well, why? It's like, well, I did this. Okay, well, when you did that, right, what you were doing, could that have caused the problem? And a lot of the times it is, right? We create our own problems. So keep those problems away.
And Tess Bishop says he's curious why stage flipping feels different light game to light game. And can it be standardized after a fashion? So I guess, you know, if you're playing an Avengers Infinity Quest and somebody else has an Avengers Infinity Quest, and both of them feel different when they flip, what could cause that? You know, I mean, there's so many variables.
There's a lot of variables, man. I don't know. I mean, really, it depends on the system, right? Like if we took it down like to basic, like electromechanical stuff, and we have a switch that grounds the flipper coil, which then does its mechanical action and then holds itself open and end of stroke switches, right? So it's like, you know, in that circuit, we could have crummy flipper switches, right? They could be really dirty, and it's not making that like really nice crisp ground connection that having nice shiny switches could do. We could have worn out flipper components. We could have assembly differences, right? If someone didn't gap the flipper free play enough, that could cause, you know, issues in the way the flippers feel. The tons of variables. But again, if it was like the difference between 2 brand new games, I have no idea. I don't understand like the new Stern system enough. But again, most of the differences you'll see will most likely be due to wear. Pinball's mechanical. Things move and jiggle and wear out. So
Indy Pins is losing sleep.
Oh no.
Says he's in the midst of an NVRAM upgrade and got himself in trouble by not realizing that the chip socket pins are not isolated from the chip insertion pins. Some solder bled through and sealed the insertion shut. He doesn't want to reheat the circuit board to replace the socket. You got any advice for him?
Start over.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm in the midst of an NVRAM upgrade and got myself in trouble by not realizing that the chip socket pins.
He should start over.
Yeah. You're gonna need to replace the socket.
Dude,
you've got solder in the socket.
It's not. Again, right? Like, okay, so you had one bleed over, but that doesn't mean that maybe another one didn't bleed over too. I chalk it up to a learning experience too, because now you know that, hey, when I do this next time, I need to use a little bit less solder. Or what do these pins look like? You know, and how much solder should I use to try to mimic that? I've learned, and I've joked about this with Steve. I mean, I joke about this with everybody, right? It's like I'm really lazy. So I try to find the fastest way to do everything, or the most efficient way to do everything. And sometimes doing things the perceived long way is actually the shortest way to do things. Does that make sense? Right? If you're trying to rush it and you're trying to, well, if I do this and then I slip my arm under this ramp and I turn my wrist at an angle that barely works and I rotate this screw 1/16 of a turn, you know, I could get it out in 3 hours. Or you could just take the damn ramp off, and it takes a little longer to do that, but the whole job will take a lot less time. And this is a situation where you don't want to brick your computer and you want to make sure you can do it right. So chalk it up to a learning experience, desolder the dang thing again, and go forward one more time.
And Jacob says that the SIP socket strips are nice for avoiding that, I guess, because there's no bleed through between the socket hole.
Again, and I think that's why I explained why I used a machine pin socket, which is 2 of the SIP. SIP stands for single inline package, or DIP would be dual inline package. I like those better than the, what are they called? Something and leaf sockets. The machine pin sockets are a little bit more expensive, but they avoid that problem entirely.
Hey, MGM Studio, good to see you again.
Hello, welcome.
Says, don't practice soldering on your pinball boards.
Yeah.
Or pinball parts. I think it's supposed to say pinball parts.
But yeah, don't use those leaf sockets in that case. It's easy. The machine pin sockets are more expensive, but they are much easier, and you will not make as many mistakes. Or that cannot be a mistake the next time. It sounds like you did a good job otherwise, right? Well, hopefully, and you wonn't have that issue if you used a machine pin socket. So,
Says he agrees with you, but he's afraid of burning the traces off the board. Indie pins.
Did you use like the super expensive solder sucking gun like I have? Again, it's like if you use enough flux and you are gentle, you will probably be okay. But again, now if you're over your comfort level, then maybe it is best to send it off to a pro, and chalk your losses. I definitely admire the bravado of going in there and trying to do it. And again, you learn something, right? So you know what to do next time. But if you're afraid to damage it further, then it might be best just to let a pro finish the job off. And you gained like 3 levels and a lot of experience. So go assign those attribute points somewhere and level up. I don't know. I've been playing a lot of Assassin's Creed, so I'm like thinking about gaining levels right now, so I'm sorry.
Hey, Eric, it's good to hear from you, man. It's been a while. Hope you're doing well. Glad you're here. Thanks for the follow, DM073 and Eric. And thanks for the bits, Nitrog.
Hey, thanks. That'll go to replacing that like 8 cents I just spent on this pin
there you
right
go.
here. So
hey.
You're the best.
Hey.
Thank you. Oh, man.
And Pinball122 says, have you ever had any luck just wire brushing and scraping connectors? Maybe a little electrical cleaner?
Yeah, but you're just putting a Band-Aid on something. Yeah. I mean, it depends on the situation, right? If it's like your general illumination connector, that don't do it. You're just that's not good. You're just pushing the problem down the road, and it could get worse the next time. But in certain applications, like I've got a Bally computer that is really gross and grimy, and these pins look like crap. Yeah, brush them off, and if it works, yeah, okay, that's good. But when you're transmitting like a lot of current through a pin like that, I wouldn't recommend it. It's better just to replace it. But if it's a low current situation like a switch or a lamp or something like that, again, a switched lamp, a feature lamp, yeah, give it a shot. It might just push the problem down the road a little bit, but hey, you can get to playing the game earlier. I just don't like to put Band-Aids on problems like, again, the general illumination stuff. Just do it once and do it right.
Thanks for the follow, JM Rainwater. Good
to
see you.
Thanks.
And Kazin Kazinti.
We've got hey, does anyone want to do a monitor recapping stream? I've got 2 monitor chassis that have a bazillion capacitors each to put in.
Hey, this show's called PinTech, not VidTech, buddy.
Yeah. What I have to do to pay the bills. Oh, man.
Elusive Ninja says he does.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, man. Next Saturday, let's do it. These are some good questions. I like them. What are we doing on time?
We've been about an hour and 20. I mean.
Oh, man, we've got a little bit more time.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. More questions. Bring them to me. I like this. This is kind of like, I know that both of these people aren't necessarily the greatest role models, but did anyone else listen to Loveline? I feel like I'm like the Dr. Drew or something of pinball right now. I love that stuff.
Tilt Oslo says, what monitor? And JM Rainwater says, yes, please, RE monitors. And Scott Denisi wants to know, what is your high score on TNA?
Dude, I don't remember. The best I've personally done is getting to 4 reactors. Hi, Scott. I'm so stoked you're here. I've gotten through about 4 reactors myself, but I think, I've crested around the 1 million mark. That's like my personal go-to. We were actually fixing, I need to email you, Scott, about the amplifier in this thing. I think the dude that I bought it from kind of screwed the amp up, and I want your opinions on stuff. But let's see. Wow. Yeah, I guess, yeah, okay. My current high score is 2 million. It's pretty bad.
2 million.
Now, okay, this thing is cranked up. It is very steep, and it is playing like a monster. It is a very tough TNA. But Yeah.
Hey, bad out of hell, you're late again. You're
Yeah,
fine, though.
Hey, at least you're here.
And Tess Bishop, I think, has the most important question that we've had all day.
Okay.
Do you like watermelon juice? Because he had some that was nasty.
I do like watermelon juice. There was a taqueria around the corner from my house in Oakland that had some amazing watermelon juice. I love agua fresca. I really do love all juice, especially when it comes from a delicious taco truck. So.
And Elusive Ninja is adamant about that air horn.
Air horns, man, they're just okay. So my modding
Looks like
experience.
Scott agrees with him, man.
What?
Scott said, pew, pew, pew.
Pew, pew, pew. I mean, I'm cool with the air horns, but my friend TJ has a Whirlwind that he hooked an electric leaf blower up to. So when the fan would turn on, you would get a literal face full of a leaf blower, and it was amazing. California Extreme next year, if you can go, California Extreme is a really fun pinball show, and that game is always there. And it's generally right next to the Twilight Zone that has a digital clock sitting where the old clock used to be.
That's so cool.
You know, those are my kind of pinball mods. But air horn, thinking about it, man. I want to get the horn out of Gold Wings. Does anyone have a junked Gold Wings they can send me the horn
That is a rad
from?
horn.
Maybe I'll do that.
Like air raid siren horn.
Let's hook up let's hook up a Gold Wings horn to the drive for the something that matches up with the light on TNA. That would be great. Yeah.
Cool.
I don't know. I wish I had some more. Maybe this would be a fun time to show off curiosities. Do I have any fun curiosities to show off? I want to keep streaming. We just had so little to actually do right here.
Independence has another question, though.
Hey, go for the question while I find a curiosity.
It's a Gottlieb Foursquare game, about 50 years old.
That's a great game.
It is a great game. It has targets and rollovers to complete the 1 to 4 sequence.
Uh-huh.
Intermittently, the one target is recorded, related only to bumper action. I used Post-it notes to separate contacts and thought I had isolated the problem, but it's recurred. I'm starting to suspect some short in the cabinet. Any thoughts?
In the Okay, so, sorry, I'm still digging through curiosities, but what you need to do is you really need to look through the, ooh! Sorry. I found a treasure trove. Sorry. Do I have thoughts? Yes, but would I be able to actively give you good advice? Like, probably not unless I was there. What you need to do, man, is you really need to look through that circuit in the schematic. That's the only way that you're going to be able to track that thing down. Email me that problem, and I have a Foursquare schematic. Well, let's look at it. Let me see how good I can be at troubleshooting EM problems on the internet. And we will do an EM soon. I just found my bag full of Stern drop target banks. And I've been looking for these for a really long time, but little did I know they were just right under my nose. I have a Sea-Witch that is mostly pieces, and I've been looking for drop target parts for a really long time. And I really want to start working on this Sea-Witch, but look at that. All right. I think I can make a couple drop target banks out of this crap I just found. Sorry, that's what I got really excited about.
Bad Out of Hell says, ooh, love Sea-Witch.
I love Sea-Witch too.
It is a beautiful game.
Sea-Witch is the first game I ever played with my then girlfriend, and that's what got her into pinball. Let's just bring a box over. Let's look over some curiosities. I've got a bunch of circuit boards here for some reason, and I saved them for some reason. So let's see if we can find some circuit boards that you would instantly know that you need to just throw this thing away and get a replacement, or if you should fix it. Board number 1. This is why...
Jacob says Sea-Witch is his wife's current fave game.
Awesome. Man, we got the Sea-Witch Club going. This is a perfectly good Sega White Star driver board. Ooh. So this actually has no reason to be in this box of crappy circuit. Oh, no, I know why it's there. It goes with this board that goes next to it. I need to get this C-Witch going. I got this C-Witch for free. And don't get jealous, because if you saw it, you'd know why. Someone took 2 C-Witches and made one really good C-Witch out of it. But I guess between those 2 C-Witches, there was only one head. So I got a headless C-Witch that was missing a ton of parts, right? It was missing the 2 flipper mechs. It's missing like 2 drop target banks, or all the drop target banks. It's really sad. But it was free, and I love C-Witch. So slowly over the years, I've gathered parts. I found a hot hand that had caught on fire. So
a literal hot hand.
Yes, it was a literal hot hand. So I took the head off of hot hand, and lo and behold, like all early Stern games used the same insert. So the display cutouts are all in the same spot. So unfortunately, that works for Meteor and Hot Hand, but not for C-Witch, because I think C-Witch has them in the corners. So there's only a couple games that use them in weird spots. Anyways, I guess I have to finally paint a cabinet for one of my own games, and I don't like doing that. So, okay. Is the resolution on this thing okay?
Yeah.
We have a lovely actual BSMT 2000 White Star computer.
And what does BSMT 2000 stand for?
Brian Schmidt's Mousetrap?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
The BSMT 2000 chipset is like a really awesome audio set. I wish Stern did better stuff with their audio in these early days, but it sounds nice. The later boards, I think this chip became obsolete, or they were expensive, or legal something, and they had to emulate the way this chip worked, and they just don't sound as good. So I'm stoked to have this whenever I'll need it. I think I got this from a customer because he had leaky batteries. Does this show up?
I can't really see it. Is it corrosion?
Let's use the big camera. This is like a paradox board, because I think I've said a bazillion times, if you've got a board with corrosion, unless you really know what you're doing, get rid of it. This board is a board I would not do that for. And some of the System 11 boards too. You see this right here? It's light. Again, batteries used to go here. And we have a bit of corrosion damage right here. It looks like it stems down just a teeny bit maybe above this chip right here. And it's starting to affect this ground trace as well. Now, this is a very expensive circuit board. I don't know if anyone's ever knocked this off, have they?
I don't think so.
You can still get these from Stern, but you can only get the ones with the emulated BSMT 2000 chip. But so that's what makes this one up, right? This is very expensive, and it's a real BSMT 2000, and it's not totally dead. I'm going to try to repair this one, and it doesn't look impossible. This is a complicated board with a lot of small traces, but looking at the back, I can see that it really hasn't affected much of the stuff on the back. But I'm going to want to be very vigilant about, of course we're going to remove these. I might have to lift this trace up and run a patch. I'm going to have to repair these traces here. I'm definitely going to lift this chip because we want to make sure that this didn't go into the fillets or any of these things here. But this might be a savable board. So that's why I've kept it forever. I should neutralize this corrosion or actually do the work on it, but unfortunately my workload for other customers' stuff is starting to pile up. So.
Batted a Hell by Meatloaf says, hey, another fun question from Marco Specialties. What's the story with those 2 weeks where all my orders were stuffed with Vietnamese newspapers?
Well, here at Marco Specialties, we very much are for recycling. Reduce, reuse, recycle. And you never know what kind of cool stuff you're going to get in your order, man.
I think we've had several. We had Korean newspapers for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff. Sometimes you'll get the local free newspaper, so you can learn all about what's going on in Columbia, South Carolina.
6 months ago?
Yeah, 6 months ago, or when I find it in the back of my car. That's a System 11 power supply. That's boring. If this is boring, just tell me to go away and we'll turn the stream off. But parts. I've got a replacement WPC computer. Let's look at this stuff. Wait, what are these? Those are displays. I'm a gas plasma freak I try to save every single gas plasma display I possibly can.
Batted to Hell by Meatloaf says, not boring.
Not boring. Okay, cool. Thanks for sticking around. What's this? Ooh, this is my favorite circuit board of all time. Hey, Scott, if you're still in here, maybe you'll think this is really cool, too. Can you read that? Say it again. Say it again. Come on.
It? Again?
This is the coolest circuit board ever. It comes out of my favorite pinball game of all time, Centaur. It is a board just dedicated for like, reverb. All it does is put like some really awesome reverb on the sound coming out of the Squawk and Talk board. These do not fail very often, but they can. And generally the problem you have is with this chip right here.
Scott says, delay, 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 delay.
All the delay. This has got a SAD 4096 chip. And this chip here was very, 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 very popular in the mid-'80s with like boutique guitar pedal manufacturers as a delay chip when they were making solid-state delay. Traditionally, delay and reverb and stuff would have been done with like tapes. So you have like the guitar pedals where it plays into a tape, which is slowed down and offset and then read, and that's how you get like a weird effect. In the 80s, they went to solid-state stuff, and this chip was like super sought after. And I've had old timers tell me that, I mean, they would, people would rip these boards out of games to take the chips because this chip was worth more than the crappy old Centaur sitting in the warehouse. So I don't know if this one works. I don't know how to bench test this thing, and I don't have a Centaur. So I'm thinking about trying to figure out how to do it. But I know I actually have 2 of these sitting at home, the SAD 4096 chips, just in case, because when I get a Centaur, it's going to run on original hardware. So sorry, I'm geeking out really hard now.
Ninja says, what would reggae be without tape delay?
Right? Oh my gosh. I used to have a tape delay pedal that one of my friends made, and I miss it. It was they were tough times. I had to sell it.
Eric says the new remake of that board was made by the YouTube guy Big Clive, suggested as a good electronics channel to follow.
Yeah, and the replacement board's great. I'm just a weirdo, and I really like it when things run on the original hardware, which is why I have...
And it's Louis or Lewis, I'm not sure, Perone, says original amp reverbs were springs.
Yeah, reverbs were springs. I have an old amp that I use when I'm playing bass at home that has a spring reverb, and my favorite thing to do is just to kick it. It's the
so
coolest
cool.
sound ever. Yeah, I keep around a lot of old gas plasma displays that still work and probably just have drive errors because, I don't know, it's just kind of fun. Even though I do all the pin score troubleshooting and I'm a big pin score fanatic, I push them on everybody because they're amazing. I really like the gas plasma stuff, and I want to use them as long as I can, but it's like almost suicidal.
Holding on to yesterday.
Yeah, hanging on to yesterday. That's what I try to do. Here is a -35 computer that looks really nice, and I have no idea why it is in this box. This is a Bally computer. Here's another one. This one's actually kind of interesting. This is one of the first, I think this is a reproduction Bally computer from way back in the day. A good old -35. Most modern, or the later Bally games would use this computer. It's lovely. It's very satisfying. I like the sweep of these resistors and capacitors for the switch matrix and stuff. I love this computer to death. I think this is like an early reproduction computer that someone was making. Maybe someone is in the chat that knows a little more than I do, but this is old school. It doesn't have any marks on it. I know someone told me what it was at some point, but I don't remember. I mean, it's an arts and crafts project, right? Someone hand soldered this thing together. And it's neat because it's just a straight ripoff of the Bally computer, right? Circuit for circuit, component for component. What's up?
Elusive Ninja says, Buy pin score so I can buy your old displays.
Yes.
Aha, exposed.
Yeah, buy all tech so I can have your old crappy computers.
And I guess J.M. Rainwater's saying he knows more than you?
He does. He totally does. That's why he has an arcade and I just talk crap on a pinball stream.
Oh.
This one says segments mess fixable. Okay.
And Eric says it looks kind of like the 2-bits version.
Yeah, maybe that's it. I think someone's told me that before. I have a lot of 6-digit Stern displays.
And Crystal says we should raid Wicked Pissa Twitch when we're done, that he's doing a Bally rectifier board build.
Oh boy.
So do you know how to raid?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
I remember how to do that. What else is in this box?
Aw, JM said he would trade the arcade for your wealth of knowledge.
Aw.
All right, that's it. I'm bringing you Kyle's head.
Ah!
You got to figure out how to get the knowledge out of it. But
This is a System 1 power supply, right? I don't know. I don't have a System 1 game. Is that what this is? I have it for a reason, so it's either good or I can fix it. I think it's a System 1 power supply. 60 volts, 42 volts, 4 volts, and 8 volts. Those all sound weird, so it sounds Gottlieb to me.
For sure. So IndiePen says the aforementioned Foursquare machine has 16 lamp sockets mounted to 4 ground straps, each with an activation wire.
Yeah.
The Marco selection of lamp socket doesn't seem to have any of this type unless he's overlooking something.
They're on metal brackets, right? Or am I wrong? We have a really solid selection of lamp sockets, but there are some Gottlieb games that used some kind of proprietary lamp boards.
Eric wants to know if we know the trick about using those novelty plasma globes to check the displays to make sure they're not outgassed. I don't think I did. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I've seen it done, but I don't remember what you do.
Okay, that's cool, man.
It's kind of neat.
I kind of want one of those anyway.
Oh, here's some pinball trivia.
And Elusive Ninja said, it's either good or I can fix it. He said he legit LOL'd when he said that.
Come on, man. It's the attitude. You got to fake it till you make it, right?
Says, yes, they are on brackets. So.
Yeah, if they're on brackets, those things are kind of riveted in. You can try hard soldering signal and voltage wires to those things, and that's sometimes the best way to fix them. It's unfortunate, but...
Elusive Ninja says he's never been so offended by a statement he agrees with.
Here we go. I'm making people mad. That's how I know I'm doing it right. Here's a trivia question. I'll give you big thumbs up. Who knows what game this came out of? Bally used a code to designate like the serial numbers of their games, and all of the boards that went into a game had the serial number that matched the game. But there's 3 letters generally that designate what the actual title of the game was. So, what game is that? Bally Power Driver board. This is my favorite. They're so elegant and easy and lovely. I love these boards.
That hell guessed Flash Gordon.
He's very right.
Yep.
All right, you get a big high five. Yeah. So Bally made all of their solid state games start with E. So E is electronic. To designate them, to keep them separate from the electromechanical games that they were still making, right? What the hell? And then FG, Flash Gordon. So, EVI is Viking, EXE, Xenon. They stopped it around the midway time, but I don't know, I just always thought that was fun. Because, you'll be working on a game and you'll open it up and there'll be all sorts of different circuit boards in there and you're like, okay, I'm working on a Dolly Parton, but the driver board is from a Rapid Fire. And the power, the computer is actually from a Paragon, I don't know. It's stuff that when you're really bored and you're doing a really long service call, those are the things you have to do to entertain yourself. But, You
want to go about, say, 10, 15 more?
Yeah. I mean, unless people are like leaving by
if you guys have any last-minute questions, if you want to get them in for Kyle now, or hold your peace until next week, that's entirely up to you.
Next week we are doing something exciting. I guess I can talk about it now.
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about next week and maybe tomorrow night as well.
Yeah, did anyone say anything about that
No,
thing?
no one even said a word about it. Yeah, yep.
Put your head down.
I am pretty small here, so it might be difficult
Okay, everyone
to see.
squint where Steve is and put your head down a little bit. Or here, I can move this guy too.
You want to give him a look at it? With that cord stretch? Why don't you walk over there with that cam? Make everybody motion sick for a little bit.
Here, you get a small screen. You get a quick sneak peek at Stern's new goodies. This cord is super effed up. Sorry, everybody.
There you go.
Next week for PinTech, we are going to stream with Harrison, the lead engineer on this game, talk about Avengers a bit. I've played it a bit, and it is good. It is.
Rainwater says he's on his way.
Come on over, man. It is quite good. I think I'm going to stream tomorrow, so you can watch me playing it very badly. But this might offend people because I'm supposed to be a nerd, but I don't know anything about the Marvel Universe. I kind of know who some of those characters are.
You taught Eric Stinson something new, man. He's been in the business for 30 years.
How did I teach Eric something new?
Because he didn't know about the Valley label.
Oh, really? Oh, cool. Go check all your Valley games and memorize them, man.
Does the Pro have the subway?
No, the Pro doesn't have the subway, but it has a, let's call it an artificial subway. It lights up each position when you have one of the balls locked. The Pro's good. It's really fun. I definitely think this game, all the crazy stuff they put in the premium, that is going to make it that much more theater. But I have enjoyed playing the Pro. We'll play it tomorrow night. Even if I have to do it all by myself and no one wants to play pinball with me, I will stream it tomorrow night. But next week, we're going to meet up with Harrison, who's the lead engineer on that game, and talk with him a bit. And yeah, and then have a Q&A. We can talk about boringer things than Avengers.
Bye. Thanks for hanging out, Lewis. Really appreciate
thanks for joining, y'all.
See you next time.
Here's a really rough Bally power module. This is the board that they went to around 1980. Maybe Xenon was the first game that used it, but instead of having the transformer board on the transformer in the back of the head, they moved it to the bottom of the game. And this one's pretty rough. This is normal. I mean, this is disgusting, right? Someone didn't get a wire lead, so they like drilled the board out and put like a big wire lug rectifier in. I don't know why I have this. This is terrible.
It's just an example of horrible, horrible, horrible behavior.
This is horrible work, right? To ensure that this connection actually did something, they ran these awful wires to the traces they connect to on the back. This rectifier here is just like, what the hell, right? It just, don't do that.
Everybody is gasping.
But you know the funny thing is this thing works, right? It's like, it looks like shit, but it works. You know, but again, like this is something, if your game had something that looked like this inside of it, I would be concerned. I wouldn't want you to play the game because who knows what this, I mean, it's not likely to cause an accident or a fire, but it could.
It's still better than his solders.
Come on, man. I'm going to teach you. We'll get this. But I don't know. This board's not worth cleaning up. This is a board that I will probably just hang up as wall art, or when I make my awful pinball table, it will sit inside of it. But
that's a great idea. You know, like an acrylic table that's just, you know, coated over just a bunch of really bad boards. I like that idea.
Yeah, that's my idea.
That's brilliant.
My wife probably wouldn't let me actually put it anywhere like front and center, but I respect, she knows a lot more about furniture than I do.
PinDaddy41 says, next Marco TV giveaway, take Kyle's scary board, please. He wants it. It's a Marco TV artifact now.
An artifact? Yeah, but then you're going to go plug it into your game, it'll catch your house on fire, and then it's my fault. That's kind of it for this box of treasures. I have many more boxes of circuit boards we could look at it sometime. I'm a hoarder. I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago I don't throw anything away, and that becomes problematic when you get this. A lot of this stuff is usable, though. I mean, this is a really nice power driver board. This is a really nice Williams power supply. What is game 555? Can someone look that up? What is Williams Project 555?
Didn't we figure that out one time?
I think so.
Was it Space Shuttle?
No.
No.
I think Pinbot's 557 or 6. Eric probably knows that, right?
J.M. Rainwater says, give away old junk to thirsty pinheads. Genius.
Ha-ha.
We'll take some broken fuses and that TNA.
I fixed the sound on it today. It's not busted anymore. So next time you come over, we'll be able to enjoy it in.
And Elusive Ninja totally agrees with you. He says as soon as I throw it out. Oh, I think Bat Out of Pinball, Bat Out of Hell is right. Millionaire. Yeah. And Jacob says the same thing. Yeah. Millionaire.
Thank you. Yep, that's what it is.
That's what it was. Yeah. Yep.
That's another fun way to figure out what your old Williams boards came out of.
But
oh,
yeah,
and this one's got a
guest. As soon as he
guest.
throws away something, he needs it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this stuff's handy because I could use this on better boards. This is actually a good board, but it's got a friend in there.
Is that a spider?
A very dead spider, thankfully. I mean, unless there's babies in there somewhere, but no. You know, and here's the thing, like, I collect a lot of these boards, and it's not because I'm taking advantage of people, but when I go do a pinball service call, and they're like, my game doesn't work. It's like, okay, well, what's going on? Well, it doesn't turn on. Okay, you know, and you get there, and there's a new power supply, and a new this, and a new that. And a lot of times at the end of the service call, they just say, hey, do you want this? And you're sure, how much? Like, oh, you can just have it, right? And so I just take a lot of this stuff. And I've probably never tested this power supply, but it looks fine. It will probably work. And that's why my big takeaway from all this is just don't go throwing boards at things, you know? Go and figure out what the actual problem is before you start throwing money at it.
Cool.
Unless it's a display. And get rid of them and put pin scores in them.
And send them to Kyle when you're done. All right, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out this week.
Yeah.
Do you want to come over here and hook up the raid before we go?
Yeah, we need to find the channel. Here, I'll jump over there.
Wicked Pissa.
So that sounds really Australian. Thanks for hanging out and listening to me blab. That was fun. I forgot how to do computers.
Oh, this is why we need a Moto. She's so hip to this stuff.
The computers and all
all
that
that
jazz.
young kid stuff.
Pissa?
H?
Let's go raid this guy. Nice. Okay, this guy looks like he probably knows more than I do. So let's go and.
Oh, nice. Maybe we can learn something.
I can't find the pause button, but at least I have his URL. Okay, thank you everybody. That was really fun. I appreciate you guys showing up every week. It's really awesome of you. And then you go like that, and then you go like that, and then you go like that. Oh! Okay, unfortunately, I can't raid who we wanted to raid because it ain't working. So.
Oh, thanks for the bit, Zach.
Hey, yeah, thank you. If you want to watch, let me just pop in the dude's Twitch channel. I can't raid him for some reason, but he's doing some board work. Looks pretty cool. Thanks for joining us. If you're around tomorrow night, at some point I will be drinking beer and playing the Avengers poorly, and it's a great game, and I would love for y'all to join. So, bye. How do I do this? End?